Good evening once again, and welcome to the Marty Heiser Show. Tonight I want to take the opening of the show to talk about a man that was a very good friend of mine. Sam Mathis passed away earlier this week. He leaves behind a wife, a son who was in college. He was actually studying in England, and a daughter as well. Sam Mathis was an executive at Praxair. He was an elder at Walnut Hill Community Church. He was a loving father. I had a chance to see him interact with his son. Any of you that have sons that are high school age, you know what a challenge that can be. He was a vital, active member of Walnut Hill Community Church. He was sought out for leadership as an elder at that church, and he was much beloved all across the church. His wife, Jacinda, who is pictured there, they were married for many, many years, something like 36, 37 years. She's originally from Louisiana. I believe they met in Atlanta. They had just come back from a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Europe. They went to Paris, I think Madrid, Barcelona, and she speaks so vibrantly about the love that she had for her husband. She tells a story about when they were just last week in an elevator, and she turned to him and said how much she loved him and how lucky she was to have him and how he was just the greatest man that God could ever have created for her. And Sam responded, well, I'm just an old man. He wasn't. He was 57 years old. But his response to her was, I'm just an old man. And Jacinta said, yeah, but you're my old man. It's a tragic loss. We're very sad about the passing of Sam Mathis. We're going to miss him. We're going to miss his smile. We're going to miss his leadership. We're going to miss his laughter and his enthusiasm. He was a much beloved man. But Sam had hope. He had hope for life after this life. He had put his life in the hands of Jesus Christ. From a small child, he had made a decision to follow Christ. And there's a song by a group called Mercy Me. And I just want to read some of the lyrics from that song. The title of the song is called I Can Only Imagine. I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine, I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus, or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence, or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine, I can only imagine. I can only imagine when that day comes when I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I will do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine, I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus, or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence, or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine, yeah, I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? And it goes on from there. But right now, to my brother Sam Mathis, who had come to a point in his life where he made a decision. He made a decision that being an executive at Praxair, having a successful American dream, wasn't all that life was meant to be. He came to realize that the author of life, Jesus Christ, who said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Come unto me. He said that when you drink of this water, you'll never be thirsty again. You will live and you will never die. So Sam Mathis passed away earlier this week with the hope of eternity with Jesus Christ. And so, Sam, we just thank you for the time we had with you, and our prayers and our concern and our love go out to the family that, like us, will miss you so much. I love you, Sam, and I'll miss you. But I know that you're singing this song, first produced by Mercy Me, and you're in his presence. So God bless. Okay. Thank you for letting me take the time to do that. It's just seemed appropriate. But I'm joined by Lizzie Lewis, and you were on the show once before.
Yeah.
And I've sought you out because I feel like there's more that you have to offer. But in light of what we just talked about, does that give you hope when you know of loved ones that have gone on in the knowledge of Jesus Christ and the hope of eternity? What does that mean to you in your life?
Well, it means a lot to me, especially when I think of, I thought about one of my sisters as you were reading the song and sharing that tribute. Mm-hmm. I have a sister who died at age 32, back in 1991. Mm-hmm. And, you know, God is so gracious that he left some evidence to let me know that she accepted Christ.
Is that right?
On her deathbed, that her husband's uncle had ministered and she accepted Christ.
Wow.
You know, so even though she may have not lived out her real length of days on earth, you know, it was just this gift to know that, you know, I'll get to see her. You know, again.
It reminds me, I had a friend of mine who, you know, he knew I was a Christian. And he would always ask questions, you know, like there was this Keanu Reeves movie called The Devil's Advocate. I don't know if you ever saw it. I saw it. It was a good movie. But he saw that movie, and he said, Marty, is there really a devil? Is that what it talks about in the Bible? Is that what it really is? So I watched the movie, and his name was Bo. I said, Bo, you know, I think that's probably accurate. You know, the devil doesn't come out in a pitchfork and a red suit and stuff like that. And he asked a lot of questions about Christ, you know, and the Bible says that today, if you hear the word of the Lord, harden not your heart, you know, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. I mean, even Sam, he was in a picture of health, and yet he passed away in a blink of an eye, just like that. But as the story rolls forward with my friend Bo, he'd ask all these questions, and I just loved the guy. He worked for a company called Cantor Fitzgerald, and he was up in Tower 1 of the World Trade Center on September 11th. And he never had a chance. The last voicemail he had sent to his fiance at the time was, something just hit the building, I'm getting the heck out of here. And that's the last we ever heard of Bo. But I had learned later that at Cantor Fitzgerald there were some Christians that were there. And that as the smoke was filling and the inevitable was coming, they had a kind of a come to Jesus moment, even right then. And when I look at the Bible, they say, well, you know, it's never too late to get right with God. But at the same time, it says, today, if you hear the voice of the Lord, harden not your heart. Don't put it off. And, you know, I don't know why you're watching this dopey cable TV show, and I don't know why my good friend Sam Mathis passed away earlier this week. But it could be whatever situation you find yourself in. Some of the poems we're going to be talking about and hearing from Lizzie a little bit, it talks about more than just what this life has to offer. Because having a job, having a house in the suburbs, trying to get ahead, trying to do it all, when you get to the end of that, we're still just passing through. And all of us aren't going to get out of this life alive. We all are going to have to face our Maker in an eternity. And that's what Jesus Christ talked about in the Bible, that you can know him and you can have security for your eternity. So I had this similar, I guess, with Bo. I'm holding on to that, you know, at the end, some of these questions he was struggling with, He had that time to make a decision, just like the thief on the cross.
Yeah, I had another sister who died age 53 on her living room floor in 2006. And, you know, her evidence is a little more sketchy, you know, I think, and hope, you know, she made it in. But I don't have as many, you know, evidential clues, you know, so I look forward to, you know, confirming that, you know, when I get there. But I think even to start the conversation on this, I think it's so important because even this helps me bring so many things in perspective, you know, like even things that I struggle with even today. It's a reminder of, you know, it's a reminder of what's really important. And so it made me think of a poem that I have called Correcting the Uncorrectable. Shadows of painful regret dance in my face as though I scheduled an audition. The tragic drama of my last life left me in an Oedipal state of mind, blind, but all the better for it. Able to see this ain't got nothing to do with Freud. Like Achilles, I wanted to step out of the battle, but for different reasons. But I must fight the good fight of faith and lay hold of salvation. I'm like Sisyphus. I must be tried, yet I'm on the job like time around the clock. There are two sides to my existence, the correct and the uncorrectable. I want Jesus to sink into me. I want him all over me, like white on rice. I want to shine Emmanuel. I want to pray instead of feel weak, to dance instead of cry, to leap instead of lie flat in despair. Don't you want to be a new creation? Then you will. He who can correct the uncorrectable has begun construction, and he who has begun a good work will finish it. So I'm excited that I really believe that one of the reasons I'm still alive, even though I have family members who have passed on, like my mother, my sister, the one at 32, and my mother and father, they all passed in the span of like 15 months. And I really maintain that one of the reasons, particularly concerning my siblings, that I'm still alive is because I got connected with the church. I got saved and connected with the body of Christ and connected with a ministry where I learned more about the Word and where the Word of God and His promises were spoken even prophetically into my life. Actually, I got saved October 1991. My sister died January 1992. So I didn't know enough, you know, being that little baby in those few months to even pick up on the cues that if I would have known and I could have prayed for her, I know would have made a difference, you know, in her life.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, it's interesting you talk about it. Sometimes they think, you know, well, Christians, oh, they're all holier than thou. Oh, they're all, you know, I know best and everything like that. But listen to what Paul said. Paul said, "For that which I am doing, I do not understand. For I am not practicing that which I would like to do, but I am doing the very thing I hate." And then it goes forward. "For the good which I wish, I do not do, but I practice the very evil that I do not wish." And it goes on to say, "Wretched man that I am, who will set me free from this body of death?" Now that's Paul. I mean, he wrote most of the New Testament. You know, that's the Apostle Paul. And, you know, sometimes, you know, they say, oh, Christians, you know, they seem a little holier now and they know what's right and they're going to tell you how to live your life and everything like that. It's not like that. Christians are just beggars that have found where someone's giving out bread. They're going through this and struggling just like everyone else. But one of the benefits you talked about is being a part of the body of Christ, having brothers and sisters that can come alongside you. Like the Mathis family right now, what they're going through, the difficulties, they don't have to do it alone. And there's a verse in Ecclesiastes that says, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if either man falls, the other will lift him up be lifted up by his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is not another to lift him up." And we're not supposed to be going through this life alone. You know, Christianity is a team sport, and we need to be there for each other.
Right. And I want to encourage those people though who are alone. You know, and I remember you know, I have this poem in one of my books called The Word. And I don't know that entire poem by heart, but it has lines like, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word looked for me, and the Word found me, and the Word followed me, refusing to leave me alone. I was never alone. And the Word pleaded my cause because the Word knew what I needed. The Word loved me. Seemed like only the Word loved me with an unconditional love, while a world lamented, crying, paining, saying, there is no hope, no help to be found. The Word birthed me into eternity. And so I want to encourage those people who are alone to know that you're not alone, that, you know, that's the beautiful thing about Jesus Christ. You know, God so loved the world that he created a son that the places that God couldn't go because he couldn't go where sin was, he created a son, you know, that took on flesh that could go anywhere, you know, and so Jesus Christ is with you right there no matter what you're going through, and he'll guide your steps even in those most lonesome times. You know, when we are physically alone, you know, for whatever reasons, disconnected from family, disconnected from the church, you know, that there's still hope, you know, not to give up, you know, hold on, even to the invisible. And the good thing about an invisible God is that he can go anywhere with you. Right. To the courthouse, you know, to fight for your home, you know, looking for a job, that you're not really alone. You know, people say, like, you know, that's one of the reasons that I believe that Christ came and dwelt among us. There's another verse in Hebrews that talks about how we have a witness. We have someone who has gone with us. It says, for the word of God is living and active, and then it goes on, for we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in all things, yet without sin. Let us therefore draw near in confidence to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in a time of need. And I think, you know, what we're talking about as far as that goes is Jesus went through everything. Have friends turned their back on you? It happened to Jesus. Have you been falsely accused of something? It happened to Jesus. You talk about going to court. Have you been accused of something and had to face trumped up charges, things that were outside of your control? It happened to Jesus. Did you have people you were counting on let you down? It happened to Jesus. Do you have people doubting you, second guessing you, wondering about your motivations? It happened to Jesus. In other words, we don't have some far distant God that we can't really relate to, who we just think is, you know, kind of mad at us for some reason. But we have someone who has come, like you talked about, the Word, and dwelt among us. And whatever situation we find ourselves in, he's been there, and he knows what you're going through. You know, you see that movie, The Passion of Christ. I don't know, did you get to see that? That's heavy-duty stuff. But when you see Christ and the suffering that he went through, this is no joke. He knows what you're going through, and he can empathize with you, and he can reach out those nail-pierced hands to you and help you through no matter what you're going through. And even if you did it, you know, you did a grace, you know, that his blood and his love is for if you did do the crime, you know, if you did mess up, if you did make this huge mistake or do it on purpose. You know, that's why it becomes this unconditional love. You know, the idea of unconditional love in such a conditional world where everything is based on, you know, conditions. You know, you might not have been falsely accused. You might have done the crime. Right, and Jesus is still, you know, that blood is still for you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I got no witnesses, and I can't prove it, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. You know, I come to mind the story of Peter. You know, here's Jesus. You know, Peter's been with him through thick and thin. He's seen him feed this 5,000. He's seen him raise the dead. He's seen him heal the sick. He's seen him, you know, speak to the authorities of the day. And now all of a sudden Jesus gets, you know, arrested, and he's getting pulled away. And Peter's like, no matter what happens, I won't deny you. I got your back. I got you on this. You know, no matter what, I'm staying with you. I'm staying with you. What happened to Peter? When they arrested Jesus, he was off like in a courtyard. And the Bible says this little maid came up to him and said, aren't you with him? You had that same dialect, that Nazarene dialect. Weren't you with him? And he's like, no, I didn't know him. He's not my guy. I don't know him. And he denied him 3 times.
He swore, I didn't know him, I didn't know him. So at Jesus' most desperate time, Peter did not have his back. But then what happened? The cock crowed, Jesus saw him, and it says Peter went out and wept. But after the resurrection, and when Jesus came back and he was waiting for him, he said, I love you, and accepted him back. So you're right. Even when you're wrong, you always have a second chance with Christ.
And Peter, he was from the street, so he did what he knew to do, like in the garden. So he cut the guy, ear off. Just like, that's not how I'm rolling.
Yeah, right.
Put his ear back on.
Right.
But then, and so when Jesus came back, he said, go tell my disciples and Peter.
Yeah.
Because they would have just said, go tell my disciples, Peter wouldn't have come.
Yeah.
But then once Peter finally came into himself, the first time he preached, 5,000 got saved.
That's right.
So God wants those of us from the streets.
Yeah.
But he's going to show us what's in us first.
Yeah.
Like he told Peter what was in him, but then he has to let us see it as he works it out. But then when it's all said and done, we are weapons in his hand.
Yeah. Sometimes you wonder why stuff happens in your life. I don't know why Sam passed away when he did right now. If I was running the universe, I'd have waited a while, because he seemed like he had more unfinished business. And I don't understand why that happened. My father died when I was 2 years old, left my mom a widow with 2 kids and 1 on the way. And she was an immigrant from Germany. I'm not sure I would have planned it that way. But God has a plan, and God has a purpose. And there's a verse in Ephesians 2:10 says, for we are his workmanship. And some people say we are his masterpiece. We are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them. And sometimes stuff happens in our life and we don't understand, but God is preparing us for something. Now, before I forget, you do have, and we're going off on this, we need a whole nother show, me and you. I'm telling you, we could do this. But we want to talk a little bit about the Mystic Inc. tour. Yes. That's what you're here to talk about. And when is that? And when are the dates? And what would we have to look forward to with that? Well,
the Mystic Inc. tour is actually an organization in Somerville, Massachusetts, called Books of Hope. And Books of Hope is a 30-week writing program that helps young people ages 13 through 25 publish books. To date, they've published over 140 books. And so at the end of every year of their program, they have a tour. They call it Mystic Inc. because they're actually housed in the Mystic Projects in Somerville. And so my organization, Urban Scholars, Motivated Through Publication, Urban Scholars, has invited the Mystic Inc. tour, some of their young authors to come and do spoken word, read from their books. Share. Some of them are poets, some have written nonfiction, and so there'll be a book reading, book signing, and they're coming here to Danbury, Connecticut on Saturday, May 12th at the Marian Anderson Recital Hall, and sharing, some of their works. And my hope is that, I'm hoping that Danbury, Connecticut is interested in having a version of Books of Hope, Books of Hope in Connecticut.
And you would do it right here in Danbury?
Right here in Danbury.
Okay, so that's going to be this coming Saturday at the Marian Anderson Recital Hall, 256 Main Street in Danbury. When does it start?
Actually, it starts 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, okay.
And we go to about 9:30, so there'll be meet and greet 6 to 6:30, and then it's going to be from 6:30 to 7. The young authors are going to read from their books. Okay. And then from 7:30 to 9:30 is going to be open mic. Which means it'll be a combination of the featured featured authors, and also anybody who wants to share, could take the mic, do a poem, sing a song.
Okay.
And I'm hoping some young people in Danbury will come out. I'm hoping some parents who know their children have gifts will come out and give them opportunity to share, because we need to hear what the young people have to say. All
right. Now, as we wrap up, you have one more poem for us? And I want before you start, I want to hear just a little bit about your story, about what motivates some of this poetry. Maybe a little bit about how the Lord factors into all this as well.
Well, I guess I'd end with the poem Sweet Deliverance, because how poetry factors in for me is poetry in my most destitute times, during my times, basically hanging out on the streets of New York, on the verge of homeless or homeless, when everything had fallen apart in my life. I could always, even if I was on a bank line or on the welfare center on the food stamp line and didn't have a pen, I could borrow a pen. And I can get a paper towel out of the bathroom, and I could scribble some words. That somehow writing became something to help keep me alive, and I could always survive if I could write. And then it helped then if I could share that spoken word. And so it became this whole journey then for me became a whole sweet deliverance. Oh sweet, so sweet deliverance. Oh bitter conviction, but so sweet this deliverance. I could taste sweet deliverance in the tears that trickled down my cheek, rolling off my lip, dripping into my mouth. They were tears with the taste of salvation, an emotional sweat with the flavor of redemption. Sweet deliverance, looking at myself, the mess that I had made. I was broken, humbled in the face of God, smalled in his presence, reaching down into the pit of my habitual sin. The Lord brought me out, lifted me up out of the abyss. I could not see the walls stained with my illusions, scarred by my attempts to be my own God, cracked by strange efforts to free myself. How I wanted to just close my eyes and not see the mess I had made. But God's voice said, behold and know where not to return. Now it's sweet. Oh, sweet. It's such a sweet deliverance. And I'm hoping to encourage, some young people to hold on and not give up. I'm hoping to develop a platform where they can come into a safe place and speak. I'm hoping to encourage some young people to pick up a pen, instead of some drugs and write. I'm hoping to help some young people realize they have books and gifts and businesses inside of them and want to help them actually take this pain and write it down and turn it into poetry and publish it and let it become a way out.
Okay, we got that. It's going to be this Saturday.
Yep.
And hopefully they have a website or something like that if people want to get in touch with you as well.
info@urban-scholars.org.
All right. I just want to close, speaking on the lines of poetry, with one more Blink of an Eye song, or one more Mercy Me song. This is called In a Blink of an Eye, and I think it resonates when I consider my friend that passed away and some of the issues that you were talking about. You put me here for a reason. You have a mission for me. You knew my name and you called it long before I learned to breathe. Sometimes I feel disappointed by the way I spend my time. How can I further your kingdom when I'm so wrapped up in mine? In a blink of an eye, that is when I'll be closer to you than I've ever been. Time will fly, but until then, I'll embrace every moment I've been given. There's a reason I'm alive for a blink of an eye. And though I'm living a good life, can my life be something great? I have to answer that question before it's too late. Because in a blink of an eye, that is when I'll be closer to you than I've ever been. Time will fly, but until then, I'll embrace every moment I've been given. For there's a reason I'm alive for a blink of an eye. And I just want to say, again, with the passing of Sam Mathis, that he lived out this song. Even though he had a good life, his life counted for something great. And he was an inspiration to all of us, and we're going to miss him very much. And I want to thank my guests again, Lizzie Lewis, for all you do and what an inspiration your life is. And I didn't even get into all the master's degrees and everything else that you have and what you've done. It's just an inspiration. So thank you, and you promised me to come back, right?
Yep.
All right. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a little bit of a break here. We're going to go once again from the kingdom of God down into the valley, down into the gutter with the kingdom of man. And to lead us into that gutter, we have State Representative Dan Carter, who's going to be joining us, and Matt Grimes, who, if you want someone to lead you into the gutter, you want this guy, Matt Grimes. And we may also have Bob McGuffey, could be calling in from the Connecticut Tea Party, even though there's no leadership there, the Connecticut Tea Party. So stay tuned, and we're going to take a quick public service announcement break, and then we'll be right back.
this state, there are no extras, no fluff, no frills, no free lunch, no second helpings, no streets paved with gold, no promise, no certainty. In this state, life is a bitter struggle to survive with the least. It's home to 1 out of every 11 families in America. It's home to 1 out of every 6 children in America. It's home to more than 32 million people. It's the state of American poverty. And if you were poor, you'd be home by now.
We're going to ask you your positions on them. Welcome back to the Marty Heiser Show, where there's never a dull moment, because frankly, this is cable access television, and none of us get paid, so we don't have to really worry about, saying stuff that's going to offend you or something like that. We can just let it all hang out. And we're going to have our phone number up there, 438-2003. So if you have a question, we are joined by the legendary State Representative Dan Carter. I want to thank you very much for coming in. And political guru and very, very smart insurance executive and just generally a political guru, Matt Grimes. Thanks for joining us.
Smart insurance executive in here.
Yeah, that's the guy. And he's rocking the goatee, which I think works for him. It wouldn't work for us.
And I'm leading you into the gutter.
And you're leading us into the gutter, yeah. We had the Bible out. We were talking about God. We had a lot. Now we're going to talk about the kingdom of man. What's going on in Hartford? Should we be afraid because you're in session and you're going to raise taxes?
We'll be very afraid.
Increase.
We'll be very afraid.
What's going on?
Well, we're no longer in session.
Oh, well.
I mean, as of midnight last
Mazel
night.
tov.
As of midnight last night. Well, technically speaking, I guess
They
you
didn't
could
do
say.
anything anyway.
Right. Well, technically, we are in session again.
Okay.
Because at 12:01 we went into a special set. Well, we went into a special session.
Okay.
So at some point in the next month or two, we'll have a special session to do a lot of the budget implementers, which are the really painful parts. But the actual session wrapped up last night at 12. It was a rough session. It was a rough session. There were a lot of things that come out of there that I don't think were the best. Obviously, a lot of the election law changes that are coming up. Same-day registration with no ID.
Now,
that was a big one for us.
With the way this works and everything, could somebody technically vote in Connecticut, drive to another state, and then vote if it goes the way they've talked about?
It is possible. Because
Really?
what happens is, if somebody shows up on the same day and they want to register, all that really counts is they have a promise that they are from Connecticut. So they go in and they swear, I'm Jack the Ripper, and I want to vote. I'm at such and such address. And all they have to produce really is a utility bill, which anybody on their computer
No photo ID or
no photo
anything?
ID is necessary.
That's ridiculous.
They'll ask for it, but then it comes down to just a promise. One of the ways we try to get around that is we try to give state IDs out and say, you know what, it's not going to cost you anything. Get a state ID. We did an amendment. Of course, it got shot down. So, I understand that we want to increase voter registration and we want to increase voter turnout. This wasn't the way to do it.
There was the same guy that had that sort of hidden camera thing with Acorn, if you'll remember.
Yeah.
That same guy went into Attorney General Holder's voting district, went up to the registrar, the person that was making sure you're who you say you are, and with a hidden microphone said, "I'm Eric Holder, but I don't have my ID. Is that a problem?" And the guy said, "Nope, not at all." I said, "But I have my ID in the car. I can go get it." "Nope, don't worry about it. Just sign right here. If you're Eric Holder, you can go in and vote." Now, he didn't vote because that would have been like breaking a law. But the Attorney General, the very political, I might add, Attorney General of the United States, even his identity could be fraudulently with these lax voter registration and voter ID laws. I don't know. It seems like it's wrought with potential peril.
I would have to agree.
Okay, now this show of late, we've had Chris Shays on, we've had Linda McMahon on, we've had Chris Meeks on, we've had Steve Ovsetnik on. It's been a rogues gallery of Republicans, and so we've been accused of not holding our guests feet to the fire. So I want to just quickly go through a lightning round of issues. I want to get your position on it. We're going to start with Sunday liquor sales. How did you vote on that, and what's your position?
Voted for it. I think Sunday liquor sales itself was a great idea. That it'll be fine. The problem with the bill originally, as it was it was a terrible bill.
Okay.
And all kinds of stuff. I think, was that on your show? Did we talk about this once before?
We did a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it was fraught with trouble. It was going to put the package stores out of business. It was going to kill a bunch of small distributorships. But at the end of the day, it really came down to just opening up Sunday liquor sales between 10 and 5. Not a bad bill at all. Voted
Okay,
for it.
next one. Hold your ground, protect your ground. This is that sort of Florida law that's come, with the tragic shooting of that young man. I understand Senator McLaughlin had introduced something similar to that, carrying a gun. Where do you stand on that?
In Connecticut, we've often called it the castle doctrine. In your home, that you have the ability to defend yourself and not retreat. And I've been in complete support of that. I haven't been in support of being able to defend your car necessarily, but defend yourself always. Always. Okay. And I think that bill died pretty quickly, unfortunately.
Last question. What is your position on gay marriage?
That's a good one. Honestly, I have a kind of a weird look at this. Government shouldn't recognize marriages either way. Government should recognize civil unions. And if folks want to have a civil union, that's fine. Every person has the ability to have a partner. And I think we need to get out of that part of it in government, because we're getting in a really bad place with trying to pick gay marriage, straight marriage, and government shouldn't do that.
Okay. Matt, we have the Republican convention coming up next Friday. Are you going?
I certainly am.
Are you a delegate?
Yes, I am.
God help us all. I'm just kidding. What are, if you can kind of handicap some of these races? Is Linda McMahon going to come out of it? Is Stednick going to be the one in the fourth? What's going on here? Tell us what's going to happen.
Looks to me like Linda McMahon is the front runner for the Republican nomination. But what I'm noticing as I work the hard count of delegates and look at it around the state, there are more undecided delegates going into this convention on the state level for the United States Senate race than I've seen in a long time. Now, in terms, what's interesting though is the reason why that there may be a little bit of a close race there is because Linda McMahon's base in 2010, when she ran against Rob Simmons, was in the 4th District. Well, what did Chris Shays represent for 20 some odd years in Congress? That's his base. So Linda, to do something different than the last time, needed to go to areas that Rob Simmons has won to keep the majority of delegates. Looks like she's been successful at that so far, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see. A lot can happen at a convention. I think the big thing is I think that Chris Shays has obviously proven that he's the stronger candidate against Chris Murphy, and I think the seat's in play should Chris get the nomination, and I think it's not in play should Linda get it. In terms of the...
Okay, whoa. So you're saying Linda McMahon is going to get the nomination, but she doesn't have a snowball's chance of winning. We should really nominate Chris Shays, and he could have a chance of winning.
Well, I don't think I said it quite that way, but I think that she has an uphill battle.
This is the Marty Heiser show. We try to break things down.
I'll break it down. I'll break it down as simply as I possibly can.
Okay.
Linda McMahon lost an election by 12 points in a year she should have won. If she had not been the candidate and Rob Simmons had, he wouldn't have won. He would have been about 5 points higher. Tom Foley would be governor right now. It'd be a lot better in Hartford. Mark Bowden would be lieutenant governor. Dan DiBasella would probably be the congressman in the 4th district. Linda McMahon took the Republican ticket down in 2010. I have no doubt in my mind she couldn't stay out of people's mailboxes. She couldn't stay off of people's answering machines. And you can't tell me that in the year that Barack Obama's on the ballot in Connecticut, that all these people that voted against her in 2010 are going to come rushing out to vote for her this November. I don't see it happening.
Doggone it, now we're communicating, Matt Grimes. That's all I'm asking for is a little honesty out of you. Bob McGuffey, you're here. We can always get honesty out of you. Bob McGuffey, the titular head of the Connecticut Tea Party. What do you see happening in the convention next week, the Republican convention?
Well, I hope there'll be more. I know there are more delegates who are principal conservatives, and I hope to see candidates that get nominated that are more conservative than last time around. That's for sure.
All right, can you just break down what happened in these regional, national, well, not national, but like what happened in West Virginia, what happened in Indiana with Lugar? Is this a good day for the Tea Party, a bad day? Break this stuff down for us.
Oh yeah, it was a good day. I know the Tea Party leaders out in Indiana. I know several of them, and I actually talked to Murdoch last week because they did a fundraising call. They put him on the phone with me. The idea there was that Lugar had been there far too long. He's basically joined the other side in everything but name. He was not voting to contain the budget. He was just expanding it with deficits. He totally lost. So they went after him a year ago, and they got Murdoch, the state treasurer, and he was a good candidate. He was statewide office holder, and once he got started getting some traction around the state, Tea Party got behind him, and the real key was that so many town Republican chair leaders before him, before Murdoch, they just abandoned Lugar. And it wasn't just the Tea Party. Tea Party ignited it, but the party people knew as well. And I mean, guy lost a lot by 20 points. I mean, that's the message right there. So that was terrific, and that's what we need to do. We need to put up alternatives to the other side, principled, conservative alternatives to the big government liberals on the other side. And so now we go into the general. And it's plenty of enthusiasm for him there.
All right, we're cutting to the chase here. Who do you like, Shays, Linda McMahon? Who do you like in the fourth? Obstednik, Dick Wieland? Who do you like in the fifth? What are all you Tea Party guys going to come out and with your pitchforks and take the streets?
I mean, if you're watching him come around, Peter Lamage, the Senate man, he's the conservative. He's terrific. The man escaped Albanian communism in the late '80s, and his father paid with his life to get the two boys out. They were around 20 years old.
So wait, you're backing an Albanian ex-communist to be the senator from the Nutmeg State?
He was a communist. He escaped. He built his life here. The man knows the boot on the neck, and he sees it coming here. You get him on your show, and maybe you've had him already. He's terrific. I had him on my show tonight on the phone. He was upstate at an RTC and couldn't get down. But he's terrific every time I see him speak. And he's the only one, and he's the only candidate in the state that people have called me up or emailed me and said they were impressed with this guy. He's walked into their RTC, and he's had them on their feet.
All right. You're getting all breathless about this Albanian. Last question. If Linda McMahon's the nominee and Obstednik's the nominee, are you guys going to come out and support them?
Obstednik, yeah, I'll support Obstednik. That's for sure. I think the party has given up in the 4th district because they don't know how to deal with Bridgeport. They know the key is you have to shrink the margin in Bridgeport. The margin in Bridgeport is 20,000 votes. You got to cut it in half to win. And at least these three guys have said that they need to go through Bridgeport. Devisella was born in Bridgeport, and he told me in August before the election last time he's not even going to campaign in there. He's going to lose, and he did. So the party, I think, has given up on it. They don't know how to bring a message into Bridgeport.
All right, Bob, we gotta get you back on the show, but you've got your own show now, don't you?
I do indeed. It's called Liberty Line. It runs from 8:30 to 9 o'clock. I'm down in Bridgeport, Fairfield, Stratford, Woodbridge, Milford, and also at live streams. So I just had it. I was just on from 8:30 to 9 o'clock.
All right, thanks so much. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate a few words. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so there you have the right wing, far right wing. The guy's got a lot of ideas. I don't know about this Albanian taking out Linda
Dan
McMahon.
Carter, who is one of the best state reps in Connecticut, I will say that, and he was a beneficiary of many Tea Party supporters the last time because for the bottom line of the Tea Party movement taxed enough already, and they had a state representative in his district that was voting constantly to spend more money that we didn't have, constantly to tax the businesses and the people of the state of Connecticut, and I think it paid off, and that's why Dan Carter is sitting in the seat that he's in now, and is the former state rep is not.
A lot of people have attributed to his appearances here on the Marty Heiser show, but I think it takes a village to get a guy elected. I think we can all agree on that.
Well, I think what Bob brings up, some of these wins, that the Tea Party is still in the game. You know, there are a lot of folks who've been discounting the fact that we haven't heard much from the Tea Party.
Yeah.
But they're still very much alive, and there are a lot of people out there who, and you've heard this from Obama, and you're going to hear this in Connecticut with Malloy, that there's a real disconnect between what the administrations are saying, all is well,
Yeah.
but the folks out on the street know better. And it's the Tea Party movement's going to start rolling again here real soon. I think we'll hear a lot from them.
Well, I think the Democrats got to make a decision. Well, not probably the Democrats, but if I had the Tea Party on one side and the Occupy crowd on the other, I think I'm going with the Tea Party. You know, that's for sure.
Funny you mentioned the Democrats. There's also a Democratic Senate race next week in Connecticut between Chris Murphy, the congressman from the 5th District, and Susan Bisowitz as well.
Yeah.
Chris Murphy, I think, clearly is going to be the convention-endorsed candidate. I don't think you could pull Bisowitz out of the race, though a lot of people are trying.
I mean, isn't this her second bite at the apple? Last time she was disqualified or
No,
something?
no,
like
she
that?
wanted to be United States Senator, but when that field was too crowded, when she wanted to go for Attorney General, and she was ineligible.
Yeah. Okay.
And but the thing about Susan Bisowitz is she's always been underestimated. When she was state rep up in Middletown, she never won a convention. She was always the challenger in a primary, Democratic primary, and always won. When she got elected Secretary of State, she did not win that convention. She had to primary her way on against a former Secretary of State. She always manages to attract women voters at a Democratic primary, which is the bread and butter of the Democratic primary in Connecticut.
Right.
So I don't think you can discount her totally. I think it would take a Hail Mary pass to beat Murphy, though.
So basically, it's going to be Murphy versus Linda McMahon for the United States Senate.
And if that's
seat
the
in
case,
Connecticut.
the election's over before it starts.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Because you know what? Last election, Linda had a shot. I think what happened was she peaked a couple weeks too soon.
Mm-hmm.
I was noticing that there was a big fall off. That's because of what you said. It was like she was in everybody's mailbox, she was on everybody's telephone. People got tired of it. But had that election happened 4 weeks earlier, I think it would have been a much different outcome.
I don't agree with you at all. I don't
okay.
agree with you. I don't agree with you at all. I mean, she does not attract. She has a Sarah Palin-like following in the Republican Party. The base loves her. The conservatives love her. The women do not like her. She does not have a woman following like Jody Rell did. She does not have a women's following like Nancy Johnson did. I think that she lost to Blumenthal by 12 points in a year that Obama wasn't on the ballot. With Murphy on the ballot, I think she loses by 20, unfortunately.
So, but you're saying if we go with Chris Shays, that we've got a
I think
fighter's
the race.
chance.
I think we have a fighter's chance. I think that Murph is still the front runner. I mean, look, Chris Murphy's my congressman. I have never supported him. I don't agree with him on a lot of things. I think Dan Carter would agree with me, though. Chris Murphy is an excellent politician, though.
Excellent
He
politician.
knows how to work the constituency. He knows how to work the campaign circuit. He knows how to work the fundraising circuit, and I think that that's been proven in the money that he's raised. He's a difficult opponent for anybody. The only other person I think that might have been a better candidate than him would have been Joe Courtney. He didn't run this time from the 2nd District. But in any case, I think Murphy's a difficult opponent to beat. I just don't see us doing it with Linda. I think that Shays needs to be the candidate in order for that to happen. And
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And I'm not saying that because I think that Chris Shays is from the center to the center left of the Republican Party, but that's what it's going to take this time.
Okay, but I mean, but do you have any problem with some of Chris Shay's positions on things? For
I
example,
certainly-
cap
sure I
and
do,
trade, he
sure I
seems
do.
to be in favor of, and some
Sure I
of these
do.
other, he's pretty partial to
And he did,
global
and he didn't
warming.
vote to impeach President Clinton. So I mean, that's a lot of things. I mean, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's had a stellar career in Congress. He has had. I don't think you could find many people in Congress that had the foreign relations experience that Chris Shays
Yeah.
had, and I think that that's what he does bring to the table.
He's been to the war zones in Afghanistan and Iraq, I think something like 28 times or something like that. He's a pretty impressive guy. I mean, I could be very, in the Republican primaries, I'm just enamored with just about all the candidates.
One race,
I think
couple
they
of races
all
that I'll be
would
looking
better.
for this time, regardless of national races in Connecticut, is from what I hear, we have a lot of competitive state house districts now that we've redistricted. And hopefully there'll be a lot of people like Dan Carter this year, a lot of freshman Republicans next year. I think we'd love to see that. A lot of purple districts, I guess you could say, throughout Connecticut. They realize that the Democratic majority in Hartford is responsible for the attacks on small businesses, that they're responsible for the taxing. I mean, have you heard about a lot of recruits coming up out of the ranks this year?
Definitely. They're coming out of the woodwork right now because they know we have these folks on some really, really bad votes. We have a lot of them retiring, moving on. Redistricting was favorable. I'd love to hear us pick up 9 seats. I don't know if that's possible.
But now, in
But
the
it's-
redistricting process, was it the Democrats that were in charge of that? And if so,
It's
why?
a bipartisan
It's bipartisan.
process, yeah.
In Connecticut, it's bipartisan.
Okay.
Equal number of both sides. And I think both sides try to protect their own to some degree. But at the end of the day, we can't discount the fact that we've got another deficit. In a year, we just had the largest tax increase in history. So we just had that.
Yeah.
And we're still 200 million short right now, and it changes all the time.
And I don't see a lot of jobs springing up around the state.
Right.
Yeah.
See, that's a disconnect again. You know, at the end of session last night, 12:01, you know, the governor comes on, all's well. Look, we've done all this great stuff.
Yeah.
And they were trying to paint this deficit as, look, we came from having a $3 billion deficit to a $200 million deficit. Well, we're in great shape. We're not. We're not in great shape. We still have large outstanding debt. We have unfunded liabilities. We're not being fiscally responsible in the state. And people know that. The fact that we're spending this almost $1 billion on this busway, you know, they started this busway project 14 years ago,
Right.
and they won't let it go. They won't let it go. We could take that money, we could put it in bridges and roads and things we need done. No, we're building a busway. It's nuts.
And I think that Dan's absolutely right. If they can pick up 9 or 10 seats in the House and maybe 2 or 3 seats in the state Senate, I think you'll hold this administration's feet in the fire for its last 2 years, which will be its last 2 years.
You know, at the Senate level, it is rather unprecedented for a state. Usually a senator is there for decades. We've had 2 open United States Senate seats here in the last few years. When Dodd retired and went on to...
We had it that way in the 70s too, when Weicker took over and Chris Dodd took over. We had it that way before. I mean, and I one of the things as a Republican that I fear is that if Chris Murphy gets elected, he's about 40 years old now. He'll be 64 when he gets out, like Joe Lieberman. He'd be there 24 years. I think it'll be very hard to get Chris Murphy out once he's in.
You like Linda McMahon. I mean, I shouldn't say like it. You feel like it's not quite as dire as Matt is making that out. Are you backing Linda McMahon?
I am backing Linda McMahon.
Okay.
I love both candidates. Love Chris Shays, great guy. I think the problem has come down to the voting record, really, which is kind of sad in a sense because Linda doesn't have a voting record compared to. But at the end of the day, we're looking for somebody who's got the charisma, who's got the background with respect to business.
Yeah.
I think we're still looking for that kind of person who's not been involved in politics. But you know, Matt brings up some great points. I mean, she had a lot of problems with women last time. I think she's going a long way to fixing that this time. I think it'll be a much different election. I think it'll be very focused on voter turnout. You know, not as much male. I think she'll play it smart this time.
Do you think the voter turnout is going to be more in some of the outlying towns, not just in Bridgeport, because it is a presidential year and people have had enough of the current administration in Washington?
I think it's going to be an interesting year. I think there are a lot of people. Yes, there are going to be a lot of better voter turnout in the outskirts, maybe not the inner cities. With Romney at the top of the ticket, that's going to be a help for us, I think, in the presidential year up here.
I think so.
I think it will.
Does Romney have any chance at all of actually winning Connecticut?
Not at all. I wouldn't say so. I mean,
why are you so doom and gloom? Why do you got to make the skunk at the garden party
it
here?
just is. It just
How
is
about
what
the
it
glass
is.
is half full here? You know, why all the negativity?
Look, it would take a roadblock the size of a boulder to be moved for Mitt Romney to win Connecticut. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Well, to win Connecticut or to win the election?
To win Connecticut.
Okay.
Connecticut.
I agree.
I'm just talking about Connecticut.
Yeah.
I mean, you got 3 problems.
Yeah.
One is Bridgeport, one is Hartford, one is New Haven. Yeah. The election's not going to be won that way. And that's where I think Linda's problem comes in, is she will need 1 in every 5 Obama voters in order to beat Chris Murphy. I don't see her getting them at the end of the day. The other thing, too, is one thing Dan mentions is we only have one way to go but up. I mean, because in voter turnout, because we get a 90% registration comes out in the presidential election. Last year was the worst municipal election in history in the state of Connecticut. Why? Because that storm depressed everybody from voting. Record low voter turnouts all across this state because of that storm.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we have to look forward to, I think, this year. Oh.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think. Well, let me get your analysis of what just happened this past week. And you know, in West Virginia, Barack Obama nearly losing to a convict who's incarcerated in Texas at this time. Lugar being kicked out. A lot of the incumbents, even what's happening over in Europe, where people are so upset with this global economy that really isn't coming back to life, that they're throwing out incumbents. And is this causing
I disagree with our friend there a little bit on Senator Lugar. did think that Murdoch was going to win, but I don't think it was so much Lugar's views or his positions. I think it was just that he'd been in office too long. 36 years is too long for anybody to be a United States Senator.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine sitting in the state legislature for 36 years? No offense intended.
No.
Didn't
None
Lugar
taken.
help with Clarence Thomas, though, I think, with his nomination?
Sure,
back in the day?
that was 25 years ago.
Just saying,
now.
you gotta give him his props. But what about you? Do you sense the winds are there's somewhat of an anti-incumbent wind out there?
I think certainly to the Democrats in Connecticut. It's a different year than what I'm sensing from 2010. Back then, there was a lot more urgency, I think, to get rid of incumbents. I don't feel that same sense of urgency yet, but I do know there's this feeling that people are very unhappy and they want to make changes this year.
Okay, we got about a minute left. Matt, give us your predictions, and what should we do if you, heaven forbid, were king of Connecticut?
Well, predictions on what?
What's going to happen in the Republican convention, the Democratic convention? What's going to happen in November? Let's go.
I'll give Linda a win at the convention. I'll give Murphy a win at the Democratic convention. 5th district, it'll be either Andrew Rohrback or Justin Bernier.
All right. And what do you see coming up, and why should people vote for you? You got 20 seconds.
Why should
He's
they
got
vote for
no
me?
opponent, that's why.
Not yet.
Hello.
They'll put somebody up. I mean, I don't think they're going to let a freshman get away with not having an opponent.
But you're a
you never
pretty
know.
powerful guy.
You never know. I think I've done a good job. It's interesting. I've had a lot of people who have come to me and they know what kind of campaign we ran last time, and they know that I'm a hard charger, whether I'm up there or back home.
Dan Carter, he's not here. He's flying Air Force jets. Matt Grimes, thanks so much for coming in. Glad we switched it direct. Bob McCuffey, thanks for joining us. And Lizzie, thanks for the poems. And get right with the Lord. You never know when your time might be up. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week on the Marty Heiser Show. I'm not sure what we're doing. I've got a week to think about it. See you later.